Hello and welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin. And I am joined by my new guest who you've never seen before, Paul Conroy. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing fine, thanks, Joe.
And this is going to be the opening episode of a new series on the channel. I've not thought of a better name for it, so I'm just going to call it Rushcast. So for the next 20 or 25-ish weeks, we are going to be doing a Rush album, starting with the 1974 debut self-titled album, and we will be finishing with Envy of None. So we'll be doing all of the Rush studio albums with all the solo albums and side projects on the way, and we'll cover live albums and everything as well. So much like Maiden Cast, this is now Rush Cast, but not with Luke. It's going to be with Paul. Paul is the drummer in a band called Audioscope, whose album you can purchase, Secrets and Lies, the full-length album. And yeah, this is a show I wanted to do for a while. The reason I did Maiden Cast with Luke was it was Luke that introduced me to Iron Maiden, so I wanted to do a Rush, similar sort of thing with Rush, and thought, well, who better to do it with the man that introduced me to Rush? So this is all his fault. Yeah, do you remember that time?
Vaguely, yeah, because it was a few years ago now.
We
when
was
we were
on shift
working
together,
Yeah.
and it became more and more apparent we was into the same music. And Paul said to me, "Are you a fan of Rush?" And I said, "Well, I know they're good, but I don't know where to start with them. And it looks like they got a pretty vast catalogue." And it was Paul that gave me. It was a compilation, wasn't it? Was it Sound of Radio?
It was called
Spirit of Radio.
Yeah, Spirit of Radio, a
Sound of
compilation.
Radio. Yeah, and then you lent me a couple of albums, and on weekends when we were, working hard, we would sneak Rush DVDs into the staff room and watch them on a Sunday. And yeah, I went from there basically. So I got these when they came out. This is the 3-part box set that sort of joins into the 2021. So I'll be going through these week by week. They're like little mini LP replicas. So yeah, this is the first one, 1974 self-titled album. And I've brought myself a little aid as well, the album by album, Rush album by Martin Popoff. So I'll be doing a little bit of info just to get things going. Yeah, released in March the 1st, 1974. I don't know if that's worldwide or recorded in Eastern Sound, Toronto, and Toronto Sound Studios. The original lineup: Giddy Lee, bass and vocals, Alex Lifeson, guitars, and yes, before Neil Peart came along, is John Rutsey on the drums. And yeah, I mean, I suppose most people listen to this album retrospectively, didn't they? I mean, there's very few people that were there from day one and followed them all the way along. But I think generally speaking, it's a long way from what the band would go on to become. But I think this is a good opening shot, a good statement of intent, and I think in retrospective as well, although they don't reach what they're going for, they do. The mission is there. They have a good shot at getting to where they eventually will get to. But yeah, it's certainly a competent album. And I think it's an album that the band they're wearing their influences on their sleeve. There's a mixture of them, but they're not ripping them off. They're doing their own interpretation of what they're hearing, which I think you can always forgive on a debut album. There's nothing wrong with being reminded of other bands when listening to a new band, but you do have to move on from it. And I think that's a problem with a lot of bands today, where it's just like this is just reminding me of another band to the point where I'm thinking I might as well just put them on. You're not doing your own thing with it. But yeah, I'll hand it over to you. What's your?
Well, yeah, it wasn't the first album I ever got of Rush, because I joined the Rush fans and became a fan later on towards the end of the 70s, really. But more on that later. It is interesting, and I certainly found out something new, that the band originally formed way back in 1968. And I'm taking some info from this book, which is called Rush Song by Song, Alex E. Body. I don't know if you can see that on there, but that's the book.
Pull back just a little bit.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
there you go. Interesting, and it's got comments from other people. It's sort of like a glossary, and it said 1968. It was Alec Lifeson, John Rutsey, and a singer and bass player called Jeff Jones. And it wasn't until 1971 that Geddy Lee would join, replacing Jones to create the original lineup.
All right.
Which was quite, it was. I was quite surprised. So they've been playing a bit before that, but obviously I don't know anything about this Jeff Jones, nothing about him at all. So that, I thought that was quite interesting to read that. Quite John Rutsey, interesting, straight ahead rock drummer, really. And he did a good job on this album, and he was originally the band's lyricist for this album, but he tore up all the lyrics because he had a loss of self-confidence, and in the end Geddy Lee had to write all the lyrics.
I was going to say, yeah, I've got a thing here with the credits. It's all Lee Lifeson as the writer, obviously.
Yeah, it's Lee and Lifeson, apart from In the Mood, which is Lee.
Right.
So but already you've got that songwriting partnership with Lee and Lifeson there. And for me, I agree completely everything with what you said with regards to it being a straight ahead album. And they were very much a band of fans, and they were particularly into things like bands like Led Zeppelin, and the other one was The Who as well. They quite liked British bands. And you can
hear, make sense.
And you can hear the influence throughout this, but there are just little hints of what they were going to become in some of these songs.
Yeah, I think I hear Zeppelin, I hear The Who. I definitely hear The Who on Probably Need Some Love and Take a Friend. I hear The Who, but I hear Cream. I hear Budgie, and I think, am I right saying subtle, just a sprinkling, say, of say for like sprinkling of pepper at the end, a little bit of Yes,
a touch of it, because they were, and they are big fans of Yes. And that was what they was pushing towards anyway, the prog.
I think the prog thing would obviously come later on, but I think they're probably a bit more influenced on the psychedelic edge rather than flat out prog on this particular album, because they do tend to go off on little jams here and there, but they don't. It's enough to be interesting, but not self-indulgent and just completely, I think that was a danger with a lot of bands at that time. I mean, I'd imagine the live shows during this time would have been probably a bit free-flowing, and
I would have guessed so. Obviously, at this stage, they were still gigging in Canada, really, which wasn't a massive circuit. And obviously, as we go through the album, there's one song that just totally broke them into the American market. And then opened all sorts of doors for them, which
I mean, we'll it's the final track on the album. We'll come to it and review it, but we'll mention it is the big hit on this album that got their feet in the door, so to speak, was Working Man, which became a favourite apparently on. Well, Canada's got a pretty good policy and I think they still have it today, where you do have to. There's a certain percentage they have to play Canadian artists and have to be seen to be pushing Canadian artists. And I think there was a similar thing. I'll have to look into it, but I remember there was a policy on American radio which basically just centralized the American radio stations. So a band could organically get their feet in the door with one radio station. If one DJ just managed to, that could light the fire, and then it would pass along to. But now they've got this. I forget what it was, but it basically not. I don't think it was by design, but it did by default. Basically, just it might as well have just been Tesco's or just it just killed all the radio stations basically. But yeah, apparently Canada does have a thing where you have to be seen to be pushing Canadian artists, which I wish more countries did. But working man basically got their feet under the door because working man, a lot of factory radio stations started playing it, and a lot of like factory run towns and ports and whatnot. And that's the one that lit the fire, so to speak.
It's big time. Before
we get into the meat of the album, though, just a few things. I listened to a really good podcast recently by Gonzalo Lira, but I'm not going to write all this information down and not give the guy credit. But 20 studio albums in full, 42 million album sales worldwide. Rush. That's in the top 100 of all time. Started gigging properly, I suppose, under this lineup in 1972. And their first album was in 1974. For a decade, they played over 100 shows a year. So at least 100 shows in a year for 10 years running. This band worked their arse off. And Alex and Giddy, I'm guessing John, I don't know, but they both married young and had kids young and knew early on to pretty much be on the straight and narrow and be practical and run the band as a business. They had responsibilities, they had bills to pay, and they were famous for not really succumbing to many of the lifestyle choices that many a rock band of this era indulged in. Therefore, avoided a lot of the traps, But from 1972 to 2015, the band played total 2,400 shows. They carved out a very good niche record deal for themselves. After the success of 2112, they negotiated a deal where they would deliver a finished album every 2 years to the record label with no intervention from the label at all.
That's right.
They were not allowed to come and listen. They were not allowed to interfere in any way. And imagine that now. They are the only band, apart from the Beatles and the Stones, to have both gold and platinum albums over the span of 5 decades. So for the 70s, 80s, 90s, zeros and tens, gold and platinum records. Apparently, no other band has achieved that apart from the Beatles and the Stones.
To succeed,
that's pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is impressive, and I mean the thing that they've always been known as has been the biggest cult band.
Well, this is it. I always thought of Rush as this sort of underground. Underground. That's not quite the right word. But a niche band, a cult band, an underrated band with a pretty rabid following, and those that know.
Yeah,
there is no one that has one Rush album. Everyone owns the catalogue, and everyone, and they could easily fill arenas, but they had a small but rabid fan base, and as I think that's the perfect for any band. But no, that's not the case at all. 42 million albums. That's
exactly.
Not to be.
It's not exactly a shot in the dark, is it?
They're not. But you say they're overrated, like you could say they're underrated, but they're massive. They're not. It's just funny how
it's surprising that with it was the music press that absolutely slagged them off all the time, but it wasn't that with the fans. It wasn't that with the public. The public like
Yeah, well, I mean,
and their
I
album
think all
sales.
of the top bands now, it was the same. I mean,
Yeah,
someone said to Paul Stanley that I'm really getting a kick in at the moment, and I'm not, I'm not quite sure.
yeah.
And Paul Stanley just went, "Don't worry about it." And that, and he went, "My house is built with bad reviews." Was the advice he gave him. So don't worry. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm halfway through Geezer Butler's autobiography at the moment. It was the same thing. They
Yeah.
never got a good review. Same, funnily enough, the same with Zeppelin, and this
Oh,
is why
yeah.
I despise the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because this is all that is a self-appointed authority by Rolling Stone magazine, and it's a magazine that
Yeah.
didn't give any of the bands that it's taking credit for now. You know,
Yeah.
it didn't support any of them in any way when they were in their, on their way up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think one thing as well, they're not quite as thingy in the sort of pop culture, because say like Motorhead or Guns N' Roses or Led Zeppelin, you can buy a T-shirt of that in
Yeah.
Tesco's, or H&M.
That's true.
You're not going to get a Rush T-shirt.
No, you had to go to
And,
the concerts to get them.
yeah. Yeah, so
I mean,
there
it's
is a
probably
bit of
not
that.
quite. Yeah, it's not quite the same now. And I mean, I have to admit, I thought, well, this is the one that I should wear, this Rush T-shirt, because it's got the Rush logo of this album. So, just in case you can't see, but there it is.
There you go.
Which is the logo of this opening album. So I thought, if I'm going to wear it, it should be tonight.
Yep. Yeah, good
It's
stuff.
it is for me. It was very interesting listening back to this album, because I really hadn't listened to it for years and years. So it's very interesting. I've listened to it about certainly several times. So it's quite refreshing to listen to it. Obviously, the classic Working Man. I mean, they were still playing that right up to their final tour.
Yeah, it was a mainstay in the.
It definitely was a mainstay, and it was one that they would even jam a little bit on as well and extend bits. And but the others,
it jams quite a bit on the album, doesn't it?
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
the song itself, you could edit it to 2.5 minutes, really.
Yeah, definitely.
And so let's get into the songs. Opening track, "Finding My Way." I think this is how you open an album. I love that little riff. That bam,
It's good.
It's great. It's got a great youthful, sort of naive energy. Giddy's finding his voice, but he's giving it this
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you try and sing that high, no chance. It's but it is that guitar and then putting them big. I mean, he describes it here as Townsend-esque chords, with that frantic 3-note repeating lick. I guess it probably does feel a bit like The Who at the beginning, and then you get these big accents crashing in with Geddy's voice right over the top. And I always remember Gene Simmons saying when he first heard this, he sort of did an impersonation, sort of, oh yeah, and he's thinking, what the hell is this? And he thought, and he said, Canadian Zeppelin. And
yes, yeah, that was
and Kiss were the ones that took them across America.
many a band. Kiss.
Yeah.
They
looked after them. They were good to them, and they got on very well with each other. Which is, and I think the other thing, I think you've shared this before, certainly I think Gene Simmons always made sure they had a good sound out front.
Yeah, he
would always go to the.
They always remembered how they got treated as an opening act, and they said that we would always. They never saw it as competition, or at least saw it as good, healthy competition.
Yeah.
And always made sure that they had good sound and that. And Iron Maiden have said the same thing. Iron Maiden's first US tour was opening for Kiss. It was Gene Simmons that discovered Van Halen, produced their demo.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, he's a polarizing character, but I've certainly had my issues with him over the years. Well, no, I've always liked him, but he rubbed me up the wrong way recently.
Oh,
But
right.
I won't get into that. It's irrelevant now. But yeah, for all his faults, at least you know where you stand with him. He's certainly not
That's true.
lied to us, you know.
Yeah.
He right. Well, like he said himself as well, he goes, I take all the credit and I take all the blame. Love me, hate me, I am one, you know, take me as you find me. So
Yeah. I think that's
can't say further
something.
than that.
Yeah. No, you definitely can't. Again, Geddy would say, no matter what people say about Kiss, you know, about their shows and that, he said that at that time there was no harder working band than Kiss with their shows. They just put everything into their shows all the time. It was always a spectacle, and there was a lot of admiration for that. Well, now that is one big cigar. What is it, a Havana?
Yeah, my friends opened a cigar shop last year, and
Oh, right.
I'll do what I can, you know.
That's fair enough. It's fair enough. But yeah, this finding my way. Yeah, a great way to open the album, and I think obviously Geddy's vocal style, which was natural to him at the time. This is where he got the critics telling him sounding like a hamster in overdrive, the dead howling in Hades, strangling a hamster, and the other one, a cat being chased out of the door with a blowtorch up its arse. So not very kind comments about Geddy's voice, and I think that might have been the thing that polarized people. They could either put up with the voice or they just really hated his voice, which is
that's the deal breaker, isn't it, with Rush?
Yeah.
It's a similar thing in metal with King Diamond, with Merciful Fate and his solo stuff, King Diamond. You either love him or I've met more than one person said to me, I wish you could buy the albums with the vocals edited off, because they say like the music's great, and it's not that he's a bad singer per se, but the piercing scream and the high notes he hits, they just go straight in there.
It's very much a Marmite voice, isn't it? But those who did like Geddy's voice, they would say that they compared him to Robert Plant when Robert Plant was hitting those high registers.
Well, I think on this album, he reminds me of the guy from Budgie.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think probably more like the guy from Budgie than Robert Plant, you know. But there was nothing wrong for aiming for somebody like Robert Plant.
Oh, of course not. No,
you know. But he got his own style. He had his own style right from the word go, really.
Yeah. But yeah, I think "Find Them Away" is a good, upbeat, energetic song, and a great way to start off the album. Going into love.
Oh, I've lost you slightly.
No.
Yeah,
I'm still there.
Yeah, I can. Your sound went a bit funny then.
Oh, right. Yeah, what do you think of "Need Some Love"?
Well, "Need Some Love" is just a very punchy, very quick, to the point song, isn't it? It's not. It was probably one of their more indistinguishable songs. You know, it's just very much the rock and roll formula, and the lyrics of, you know, oh, I need some love, I need some love. It's not. It's very, very basic compared to what Rush lyrics were going to become. But it's good. I think Rutsy on these more straight ahead songs was more in his element, I think, when he played these.
I think Giddy's his lyrics, I think we need to speak about on this, because the lyrics are very, hey baby, I need some loving, and
you
know.
I think to be fair to him, I think he had to do these. Sorry, excuse the pun. But he was in a bit of a rush to do these because of John Rutsey tearing up his original lyrics and throwing them away.
And with Neil obviously coming in, that, you know, there was no ego, there was no thing. When it turned out he wrote lyrics, Geddy saw it as, oh great, that's one less.
That's
job
one
for
thing
me.
I got to. Yeah.
So it wasn't something he was particularly, he felt he excelled in or particularly cared for. And I think Giddy's lyrics, much like John Rutsby's drumming on this, it's solid for what was needed at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's in that, and you'll say the same thing, but it's in no way criticizing what they did and how they did it. That was them at that time. That was Rush, the original, certainly in recorded works, and he was there for that. But Need Some Love, yeah, I think it's there's some good bass playing on this one. It just begins to hint that he wasn't just a plod, straight ahead rock and roll bass player. There was a little bit more. And actually his bass sound on the album is quite clean and has that twang, whereas a lot of bass was more of like the dull thud. So he was sort of pushing more towards John Entwistle with regards to the bass playing, because that's the sort of thing John Entwistle did.
And again,
and Jack Bruce, and Jack Bruce as well. Yeah.
If you're going to have a hero on the bass, that's the hero to have.
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly very, very. Yeah, I think it's a straight ahead song, and it's over so quickly that you can't get bored with it. And quite a nice, punchy little energetic solo from Lifeson, I thought, on this particular song.
I think for the early years, I think Lifeson is the star of the band.
Yes,
it would go on to be Neil, but all three of them have been. They're always highly regarded as the top in their field. Your top guitarist, top bassist, top drummer.
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly even on this album, you can hear that both Alex and Geddy are more than proficient in how they played. Yes, it was things that say, oh yeah, well that's just another rock riff and that Zeppelin-esque and that, but they took it in a slightly different direction and just phrased things a little bit differently. So I think already you can hear the musicianship there in this early form.
So Take a Friend, what do we think of?
Now again, I like Take a Friend. Again, it's another fading, but this is a very odd repeating riff, something that Rush would repeat again and again, become famous for in later years. It's a little bit off the cuff, and I think actually it's quite one of the more interesting numbers on the album. And I know it goes. Yeah, sorry, Joe, go on.
No, go on. The way the album's sequenced so far, you've got a nice high energetic opener, then you've got this hitting the ground running fast number, 2.5 minutes. It gets in. Yeah. And then it just settles into this mid-pace groove of a song.
Yeah, definitely. Again, it's
with a nice solo in the middle of it as well.
Yeah, it is actually a very nice solo in this one. And again, I don't know, it just had a little bit more, how would I put it, air in the song. It was breathing a bit more, I thought, than Need Some Love, I think, because that was just seemed more formulaic, whereas this was a bit more expressive, I guess. An early example of that. And again, they're one of the comments that come through this on all the time is on this album, they'll stick into a riff, but like 2 minutes in, they've already done 2 verses and 2 choruses. It's very quick and to the point as well. So I think this song, I think it's about 5 minutes. I think it's about 5 minutes.
Just under, about 5.5.
Yeah, something like that, which I think is a little bit less than Finding My Way in time-wise. But to me, it seems to just go through and it's over before you get bored with it again. But I like it, and I like the way they even take it out on that very odd riff, spiky riff at the end as well. And again, it's a fade out.
It's funny because we start off big and energetic, and then it sort of winds down, and then the album builds back up as we go on. But yeah, we wind down a bit more now as we go into Here Again, which is a I think the opening riff of that dun, bun, dun, 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 it kind of Sabbathy.
It's quite it's quite a moody,
but it goes into a nice bluesy
number. Yes, it does. And again, I think there's some nice little bits of lead on this, and interestingly, Geddy's voice starts off quite low, and then he just builds it until the crescendo in shrieking towards the end of it. It just and it is the longest track on the album. It beats Working Man. Not that it's a competition to be the longest song, but it was it's the longest song on the album.
Oh right,
it's so not by much. I think it's about 20 odd seconds or something. But it again, to me, I don't know about you listening to it, it didn't really drag to me, because I just think of the nice bits of playing against, some nice bass playing on this. And again, I think Alec Lyson, as you said, very much the star on this one.
No.
Very free solo, the way he plays.
They're mixing stuff. It's got a common thread running through it, but it's showing that the band are capable of different shades, different styles.
I think in some respects it was probably the typical album which would have a ballad-ish type song on it, and this is it for this album.
Right. So we are flipping over now to side 2.
Oh yes.
And we're on to What You're Doing, and this is very Zeppelin-y at the beginning. You got that dun, sort of riff.
It definitely hits. It brings in that second side with a crash, really, doesn't it? It just grabs hold of you straight away. Again, something that Rush will become very known for: the bass and the guitar riffing together on this particular song. And again, quite an early favourite on their early gigs and tours. I think right up to and including 2112.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, the 2112 tour. I would play this one quite a bit, because there are some bits again in this that you get them instrumental fills, a lot of syncopation that again was going to become a trademark of them in later years. So you've got that, just a little taste of that in this song. Again, really good. Again, as you said, standard sort of bluesy with it, quite fast, intricate runs on it. Very good. I quite enjoyed listening to this one again. Again, very, you easily forget. Well, I certainly do anyway as I get older.
Yes, it's a nice song. It's again, it got a blazing little solo in it as well, and it kind of goes off into a little jammy bit, but it always comes back to that. Riff, you know. So
again, it
rolls around it nice.
It does. As you say, it's quite intense, and then they sort of just take it down a bit, and then he's sort of a bit more moody on the guitar, and then it's back up again. Again, something that was trademark Rush later on, you know. But so, it was good. It was good. And again, I think his guitar work on this is a little bit freer, perhaps, than on some of the other ones. I don't think it's not quite so formulaic. He's expressing himself a little bit more on this one, I thought. Certainly to my ears, anyway.
Yeah. And if you feel the need to move,
yes,
this is that perfect song.
Yeah.
If one is in the mood.
Yeah.
If it is Saturday night.
Yeah.
And
it's 7:45.
Yeah. And if you feel like seducing the missus with a robe slightly open,
yes,
this is a song to play.
Yeah, it is. But it is. You remember it though. Hey baby, it's 7:45. I feel I'm in the mood. You know, again. This actually got quite a bit of airplay, and I think there was a particular. I've got here the St. Louis classic rock radio station KHSE would regularly play this song every Friday night at 7:45 p.m.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
in reference, because of that line. which I thought again was interesting.
I can hear this song as well on the soundtrack to any sort of 70s sort of stoner bikery sort of comedy.
Yeah.
Where someone would like sparking a joint and something funny would be going on, or be some girl dancing somewhere, or into a bar, and you know, I'm thinking Cheech and Chong or something like that. It's your favourite is on there as well. It's got a good use of cowbell.
Yes, indeed. Just every song should have one. You know? Well, certainly every drummer should own a cowbell, definitely. And I'm no different. I did have a couple, but I've got the one now. You can't. Again, it's a typical sort of format, but I think it's quite a strong vocal melody on this one, and I think the way that Alex puts the little lead licks in alongside it is quite clever. It's a good riff as well. Anyway, instantly recognisable.
I think you just took your words out of my mouth. It's instantly recognisable, and it does its job, doesn't it?
It does. It does do its job. It's and again, I think not quite as important as Working Man, which we're going to be coming on to, but it again got them recognised, and it was a favourite. Again, I think I remember them playing it when I see them, and that was on the Permanent Waves tour.
What, they played in the Mood, yeah?
Yeah, I think it was part of a medley though, but it was in there. So they were still playing it then. I think it sort of dropped away after that, but it was still being played, and certainly in its first sort of chapters of their history, it was a staple. It was always played live.
Well, now we're coming up to we've got 2 songs left, and I think this is the unsung gem on the album.
Yeah.
Before and after, I remember that just one time when I was listening to it sort of in the background and in the car and all that, but there was this one time when that intro, that beautiful mellow little intro, really sort of took me back, and I thought, oh, I can't believe I've not noticed this. Yeah. A really nice mellow little number. It kicks in afterwards, but that little intro is really, really nice.
It's beautiful, really. I mean, again, I think Alec Larson working quite a lot on this with putting acoustic, but you've even got some very nice, you've got some nice bass on this as well. It sounds really, it's a very lovely, mellow,
big, beautiful.
Basically, yeah. But it's quite a luscious soundscape at this point, I think, and certainly quite unique on the album. But again, it's pointing towards where they were going to go, really. Very, very nice. It builds up. But I think they did what they've done on all the songs generally. It's abandoned quite abruptly and straight in with this really quite heavy riff. You know?
Quite a driving little riff as well. That and again, John, I think, deserves some credit for coming up with a good beat to give that riff its crunch, its drive. You know,
he locked it down, and it sounded really good. But it was just such an variation from that really lovely intro to something that was really quite hard edged. I mean, it is sort of very heavy blues.
It goes into it gets quite jammy towards the end, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And again, you've got Geddy shouting out, quite a long on this one as well. It's I think very Zeppelin, where the music cuts a bit, sort of the da 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 da, and you got the drums driving it along, da 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 da, and then you get Alex coming in with again quite a strong solo. That's that is sort of very Zeppelin-esque.
And then, yeah, let's get to it. The closing epic, which is
Oh, yeah.
Working Man. What can we say about this song that hasn't been said?
I don't think there's an awful lot we can say. I mean, we've already said it is the song that broke Rush, really. And I think on your copy of Rush, does it say on there, and a special thanks to Donna Halper of WMMS in Cleveland Radio? She got the ball rolling. It should be on the back of the cover, not unless it's a different one.
Of course, not to forget all those that have made this possible. Jeff Franklin, there's a bunch of names. Thanks to Marshall, and special thanks to Donna Halper of WMS Cleveland for getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, and basically she picked that song.
Yeah,
because they called it as that's it. And they called it as she picked it for her DJs. She was always on the lookout for what she called bathroom songs. In other words, they want a long song that they could have a comfort break, basically.
Yeah.
And they picked this. She picked this, and they said the switchboard would light up, and people thought it was Zeppelin, and it was a new Zeppelin release. But Cleveland really took to this, and Working Man and the theme of it, and again, some good lines on this one. Things like you're more the lyricist than I am, but sort of 9 to 5, working from 9 to 5, day in, day out, basically. Seems to me I could live my life a lot better than I think I am. I guess that's why they call me the Working Man. It's just and it certainly struck a chord with the people in Cleveland, because obviously it was a very industrial town, industrial city. So you can't really say much, but it's quite a dark start. I mean, that guitar riff intro is quite heavy, and say reminiscent of Sabbath in some ways.
Yeah, I mean,
just that tone of it.
That compilation album you gave me all those years ago, that was the opening track of that, and that riff caught me. That's what hooks you. So it sort of starts off the old down, and it it's got a good drive, good thing. You're like,
absolutely.
But when that riff kicks in, that's when you go, I'm coming back to that. Remember that bit. Again, you could do like a radio edit, because it's around the 3-minute mark. You should have that boom, boom, and then bang, and then that's it. He goes off into that big jam, and
that's it again.
And then it just goes off and on, and then it just comes back to that. And
it's quite fantastic. It's lovely. It's good, and
it's great the way it just comes back to that bam, bam, and then back into that first verse, and
it's good. It is good, and you get a tiny little bass solo that brings the main solo in. Just that rundown on the bass, and Alec Lyson's solo probably, I think it's described as his most technical solo, but I think it's his best solo on the entire album. Really, you can hear that he's put an awful lot of thought into it. He winds it up, and then there's some speed in there as well, and then he very deliberate. It sounds really, really good. I did when I first heard Working Man. I thought, wow, I like this one. This is a good old song, and they do literally go into almost like a jam, and certainly live they did as well.
I mean, I think it's always the closing track needs to be a statement, doesn't it? It needs to go, and we're leaving you with this.
Yeah.
And it's a case of leaving the audience wanting more. It's closing with a climax, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
They've given you the breadcrumbs so far, so you've got a nice energetic opener, hitting the ground rolling 2.5 minute.
Yeah.
Nice groove, nice bluesy
Yeah.
ballad, nice jammy, you know. And then we've got pop. We've got lots of pop melodies.
Yeah.
Big driving riffs, good drums, good solos, clever bass. The band can jam when they want to, but they're not overindulgent.
No.
Little bits of everything, and then they just close with this
Yeah.
perfect little song that's got the fact that radio stations even picked it up is a miracle because it's
Oh,
7
yeah.
long. I mean, that's probably unheard of at the time, but it's a perfect mixture between a good hooky song, good melody, good big chorus, big catchy riff with a big jam in the middle, and it's like a live song.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
so now you know this band are tight, they can mess about, that you know that they're only a band that's well rehearsed can play a song like that. And of course, this isn't like today with everything's cut and paste and chopped and clipped and things.
Yes.
They would have had to have played that.
Yeah.
And I think leave with a statement, leave with a, and this is the one that really, everything's nice so far, everything's competent, everything, you know, is where it needs to be. It's ticked all the boxes, but this is the song that sets it apart. It's set apart from the rest of the album.
Yeah.
And this is showing the band's potential.
Oh, yeah.
They're capable of a lot more of what you're getting on the album. This is what we're capable of, but here's a hint that we're capable of more. I think, it's a great little, it's a great debut album. It's everything a debut album should be. It's a statement of intent.
Yeah.
This is what we're good at. This is what we want to do. And there's hints. It's all pointing of what.
Yeah, it is. And it's an intention as well of they're not going to toe the line as such. They're just going to do their own thing and do it their own way. And certainly, as you say, with Working Man, it goes right the way through. And then even right at the end there, the accents, they all slow up. And then you do that bit on the end with Alec Lyson, just sort of gradually ramping up that end. And it's a big ending. There's basically saying, right, this is it. This is the finish. And you think, yeah.
It even ends, doesn't it? Like it concludes like a live show. That bam, bam, and it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. And you can almost imagine them saying, "This, we've been Rush. Thank you and good night."
Yeah, exactly.
Just walk off. But again, it is still regarded as one of their classics right from the first album, and the fact that they played it on virtually, I don't know if they played it on every tour, but they played it on virtually every tour, and they certainly played it on the last couple of tours that I saw them on.
Yeah,
it was always there. It's always there, and always went down well.
So. Well, we. I was going to say let's do a summary of the album, but I think we've pretty much covered it.
I think we have. It's actually, one thing we should mention, obviously, Working Man breaking ground for him, and thanks to Donna Halper. The other, the second thing that worked out in their favour was their producer, Terry Brown. And he was brought in on this first album.
So he did do the first album, because he was, up until a point, pretty much the fourth member, wasn't he?
Hold on a moment, Joe. Oh, hold on. I do beg your pardon. I'm about to lose power.
Oh, right. Just in time as well. We are going to be wrapping up now anyway. So, what was Grace Under Pressure, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the last album of Terry Brown.